And hello everybody, welcome to another webinar with Astro Photog. I'm Aaron King with Photog Adventures. Today we're doing another Astro Photog themed free webinar. So some people are still coming in, people are going to just be watching the time lapse over here at Natural Bridges. So let's just sit back, enjoy, get ready to go, and let's see who's joining us right now. Welcome, welcome. Let's see if everyone's had their pages refreshed and are getting the live stream. Let's also get comfortable. For those of you who are going to watch the replay right here, we are going to be very small. Yeah, you can see me right now, but we're not going to have me very large. I can pull myself, make it bigger so you can see who I am. Hey, it's Aaron King. Hey, guys. But I'm going to keep this as small as I possibly can so I'm not blocking any of the images we're working with. I'm going to put it down here in this corner. Oops. Put it down here in this corner so that I'm not in the way of this composition and the ones that I'll be showing. So we're live now. Let's go ahead and get into it as people are coming. It is barely 11:02, and so we are just getting started. People are going to be clicking refresh, and joining us as they go. And no matter how many join us, I'm going to go through the webinar, so if you missed it, you couldn't make it, then you can join me later with the replay. Hey, George. Hi from Ontario, Canada. He's got a Nikon D810, which is actually really fantastic. Now, Nikon D810 over the 750, did you decide one over the other, or just get the most recent model when you purchased that, George? Oh, I gotta make this. Good morning from Los Angeles. Hey, Susan. Welcome back. I saw your comment on the YouTube channel. I'm glad that you're here and glad that you made it. Good morning from Los Angeles. Good morning, Nevada. Nevada XTube. C1 has been reached. I don't know what C1 means. Is that a phrase for when you're live or when you have a capacity of an audience? I don't know what C1 has been reached means. So if you guys have any questions from last week's webinar where we talked about planning, feel free to hit me up. You can hit me up in the middle. If you come in for 5 minutes and you have a question, don't be afraid to ask me just because I'm in the middle of waving my arms around and talking very heavily about something and busy. Don't worry. Just say it out here, type it in, and we'll be good to go. He's always first in line to get the latest camera. So when the D810 came out, George got it. Awesome. First contact solar eclipse. Okay. C1 has been reached. Now, just the fact that the new moon's coming means it's not really counting down to the solar eclipse. We still have till Sunday for the new moon. And then the very next new moon is the solar eclipse, Nevada. So how do you mean your first contact is the solar eclipse? So I have a bunch of files today. For those of you who are in here, we're going to start at 11:05, so we have one more minute to go. I want to start at 11:05 to give some people time to come in before we get rolling. For those of you on here, I don't have an echo today, I'm pretty sure. Let me know if I do. As well as checking out these images, you can probably see the time lapse just fine, but say I open up this image and I pull it over there. You guys can see this okay? Just curious, these things are coming through. You guys have a clear view of this. Everything's fine. First contact with you today, C1. Oh, gotcha. I'm on the list now for the Nikon D850. I bet you are, George. I might even be. Right now I have a Canon 6D. It's fantastic for astrophotography, but sometimes I get tempted by the idea of the next Sony a7R III or the next Nikon. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to stay Canon permanently, but I'll probably keep my Canon glass and then just convert them to whatever I get. So I'm pretty excited. It is 11:05. Let's roll with this. Hey guys, I'm Aaron King from Photog Adventures. If you guys haven't followed our podcast or our YouTube channel, check it out. Our podcast can be found, just Google Photog Adventures podcast or go to your favorite podcatcher, search Photog Adventures podcast. You can listen to myself and Brendan, my partner. We are in this together for Photog Adventures, trying to grow our portfolio. and specifically astrophotography and landscape photography. And so you guys said, yes, quality images at least are showing up enough. Let's get rolling with this. So let's start out with checking the world and doing location scouting. I'm always asked, how do you location scout? It's nothing crazy special. It's not like there's some amazing million-dollar trick that I'm going to reveal today. I'm just going to show how I do it because I'm always asked, what do I do? And I'm also going to talk about some of the locations that I'm going to show you compositions from, and I'm going to share with you my failures and successes there. And so let's just start off with my failure at Bryce Canyon National Park. I use Google Earth. Google Earth is fantastic. It's amazing to be able to see the 3D geometry of the terrain, not just scrolling in and seeing the satellite image, because looking straight down on a satellite image, you can get mistaken on something. What am I looking at? Is it this? Is it that? In fact, let me go ahead and move this guy around. So I'll make myself a little bit bigger on Google Earth, and I'll come over here. I think that'll work out pretty well. So hit me up with questions as you go. I'm going to rush through this as fast as I can just to keep this something tidy and neat, but interrupt me. Like I was saying, just interrupt me. Feel free to. So what was the failure about Bryce Canyon? Well, we decided we wanted to go somewhere awesome, had a nice awesome sky for the Perseid meteor shower. The idea of Perseid meteors going all over the place with the interesting vertical elements of Bryce Canyon was way too tempting. It was easy to go for. So here I am looking at Bryce Canyon on Google Earth, and I decided to use Google Maps alone. I planned the entire thing using Google Maps thinking, I'll be okay. I can see right here. Here's a downward slope. You just walk down here and get in. I'm trying to figure out where the best place to insert into the awesome areas of Bryce Canyon. And I decided, Brendan, let's go down to Inspiration Point. We can park right here and then just walk and then go down in. And even on Google Earth at this kind of an altitude elevation exaggeration setting, it looks like it's a pretty good slope. I'll just walk down it. So if you're in Google Earth and you ever want to change a setting to help you know how the terrain is going to be, or at least know where the elevation changes are, I recommend you going into your tools, go to your options, and over here you will see terrain, and you have a 1 to a 3. If you make it a 3 exaggeration, it is just going to spike everything like it possibly can. It is just going to be nuts. So you can see how the terrain has all changed because I've exaggerated the terrain. I needed to exaggerate the terrain to understand what was going to really be this terrain. I didn't understand what I was dealing with because I thought we could walk out here from Inspiration Point and just mosey on into Bryce Canyon. I'd been to Bryce Canyon many times, but not recently. I didn't know this section. I just wanted to walk down in, and I couldn't remember where you walk down in. And I thought this was a slope, but when you get there, it's a complete cliff. It's no chance of hiking down it. It's just falling down it. That's the option, is to fall into Bryce Canyon. You can go to Sunset Point and actually go down some of these switchbacks that they have up here to get in to Bryce Canyon. That's one option, and I didn't know that. I didn't research it beforehand because I thought, you know what? I found it. So location scouting with Google Earth has a chance to fail if you don't maybe over-exaggerate the terrain so that you understand, okay, this is not flat desert. This is going to be bumpy and possibly blocking my view of the sunrise, sunset, moon, Milky Way, whatever I'm trying to capture. So I like to exaggerate, not always at 3, and most of the time not at 3. I like to exaggerate up to a 1. If you have 0.1, look at 0.1 or 0.01. It's practically flat. If I go back to my Inspiration Point spot here on Bryce Canyon, you're going to fly in, see it kind of like you're on Google Maps where you don't have 3D. You will see the 3D, but it's just, almost as if I could just walk out here like I'm entering the beach and entering the cool scene of Bryce Canyon. And so I didn't have exaggeration on enough. So change those settings if you're curious about a spot that you've never been and you want to know, is it going up and down? Is it too difficult to pass through? Trapass. I can't think of the word that I'm trying to say, but I like to set it at 1. 1 is solid. It's going to give you terrain that goes up and down. It's going to give you bumps where you have bumps. You're going to know that you're dealing with some elevation changes. And had I done that, maybe I would have recognized that this was a cliff and not just a slope. So then how do I plan for Milky Way photography with this? Well, Google Earth has one cool trick, even though it doesn't adjust to the time of the year, but it is a neat trick. If you haven't used it already, let me show you. You can change it to a sun to day to night right here. You click that option and it actually gives you, let's come up here. If you go out of Bryce Canyon and you take a left and you go through this Red Canyon area, there's a really pretty spot up in Low Sea Canyon. I don't believe I'll be able to get there terribly fast. Oh no, here we are. Low Sea Canyon. So this terrain up here has there's an awesome cliff with a tree on the edge of that cliff. If you check the Instagram for us at Photog Adventures, you'll see Brendan's image of that tree hanging off the cliff, this solo tree. And so say I wanted to be here. I'm not going to find the tree right now, but say this was the spot and I wanted to find out how the Milky Way was going to be from this location looking what is directly south. This day to night option helps me see that. It shows the Milky Way. Now, Milky Way changes over the time of the year, so you can't see exactly where the Milky Way is. But say you're completely brand new to where the Milky Way is going to be. Is it more western? Is it more eastern? This will help you see that, okay, let me pull back, and so I can see the sky, and then you can see how the Milky Way rises up here and then is going vertical. I might even be wrong, because this has a date and a year and a time. I actually might be wrong, and I haven't checked it enough to see that it's updating, because I was just outside last night at Mirror Lake, and this is pretty much what happened. As soon as the sun was setting and astronomical twilight ended, you could see the Milky Way pretty vertical, but a little bit of a 45. Let me pull way out of here so you can see what I'm talking about. You still can barely see that Milky Way up there. But this is a little bit of a 45, and then it goes vertical before it dips itself underneath the core, or the core will dip itself under the horizon. And so you can use this to kind of visualize where Milky Way is. I use it sometimes, barely. Most of the time, I'm trying to find out, is this going to be a cool place for Milky Way photography? And I can use PhotoPills on my iPad, on my iPhone, to make sure that the Milky Way is in a good position, make sure that core is awesome. Nevada confirms that Milky Way is updated on Google Earth, and so I was wrong. It is updating that image. That's awesome, Nevada, and I'm glad Google Earth is doing that. It seems like it has no reason not to. It has all that information. It could easily do it. It's only going to be something awesome soon. So say I go somewhere. I know that Strawberry Reservoir was really nice. Brendan and I went out there for the very first time ever for Photog Adventures to capture the Milky Way. So say I want to find a cool spot near Strawberry Reservoir. Why do I know it's near Strawberry Reservoir that I want to be? Well, let's just go over here to the window that I have for you and go to what we talked about last weekend. Last weekend, we talked about clear dark sky, dark sight finder, and other planning using PhotoPills, as well as, what was the first thing? Oh, Stellarium. That's right. So let's navigate through the endless links that you have to click on at Dark Sight Finder to get to the map. And when you're at this area in Utah, you can see the big bloom, and then over here is Strawberry Reservoir. Strawberry, the city, Strawberry Reservoir right here. And so why do I choose this area for my example is that I know that coming off of Strawberry Reservoir, it's brilliant out here. The light pollution is at a minimum, and it is looking fantastic. And so I want to find something interesting out here. Now, I had never heard of this place before I tried this on Google Earth. I never knew it existed. No one's ever said anything. I've lived in Utah a few years, and they never mentioned it, but it was really fantastic for the Milky Way, and yet there's some challenges still that Brendan and I are solving. So out here, Strawberry Reservoir, what am I trying to find? I make sure, and if you don't have it, make sure the photos part of the checkbox down here. Oh, you can't see it. My face is in the way. Let me come over on this screen and move my face. So you can see down here, you guys can see where I'm looking at. Over here in the bottom left corner, you have all these check boxes to turn on borders, labels, ocean, blah, 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 blah. I'd make sure the photos is on. Make sure all of the photos are on. You have these Panorama and 360 cities because the 360 is fantastic for planning. I make sure the photos are on because then I can see out in the middle of nowhere, there's a bunch of photos. Well, why? Why are there a bunch of photos in these areas? So I was just navigating through, looking at places I'd never been, and all of a sudden I noticed a cluster of photos as I was coming across this river. I guess my tip right here is to say, when you're trying to find an element of interest for a Milky Way, look at roads and rivers and train tracks and follow them through places, because sometimes you can just randomly scour this area, but it's really nice to pick a feature that you know would be interesting, and then you kind of move across it and see where the photos are that people have taken. And if you ever see a cluster of photos like this one, my face is also in a bad way. Let me move that. Get back down here, you. So then you see the cluster and you know there's something going on. Enough people have taken photos of this area. It must be interesting. What are some of these photos? And that's where I found out about the strawberry pinnacles. Never knew they existed. Here's an awesome river. Here's the Pinnacles. Is it actually neat to be out here? That picture was just kind of plain. Oh. And then you see something like this and you go, hey, the Milky Way is not only visible from here, but the pinnacle stretches from the bottom of the image to the top. And that's an element of our composition points that we wanted to go over today, is have an element that breaks the plane. Don't keep everything like it's separation of Neapolitan ice cream, where it's got its perfect segments and everything, nothing's crossing over. A good composition is going to have an element or two that's going to break that plane. And so I found this Strawberry Pinnacles area thanks to seeing that cluster, and we came out here. We drove out here, and then we dealt with the reality of the campsite light pollution. Now, not very, very bright, that lit the sky. It's just right when you're there. You have this tall cliff here. You have tall walls here. And so you're kind of trapped to only stand right in this valley. And you can see it in Google Earth, and sometimes you think you understand an area, and then you go in person, you find out, okay, that's a lot tighter than I thought it was going to be. Or there's so many tall trees over in these areas that you thought you could stand here on Google Earth. So the pictures are vital to let you see, okay, if I'm standing here, what do the pinnacles look like? And that's where the guy was on the river looking at the distant pinnacles. And I wanted the pinnacles to be larger in my image, so I chose to come over here to where the pinnacles were more featured. And let me pick a big picture. Right there. That's practically exactly where we stood. We were in this field right there, and just a quick story. We're in this field taking pictures of the pinnacle. The clouds are just outside of our frame. This is going perfect. And then a guy, I guess we'll say it's a guy, who knows what gender it was, they came out and they went to the bathroom, and the light automatically turned on in the campground. Big old floodlight that flooded the field we were standing in. So we waited and waited. It turned off. And then someone else came, and then someone else came. For an hour and 15 minutes, constant traffic to the bathroom at 3 a.m. 3 a.m. Why are we getting interrupted by people going to the bathroom at 3 a.m.? And why is this floodlight coming on? It may have not been a bathroom. It may have been some sort of breakfast preparation area that they're preparing 3 hours in advance. And so it was messing us up. And really, 20 minutes into this whole trip, the clouds came in. They blocked all view of the stars. And it was over. So tip on this, keep your photos open. Find obvious things that you can travel down, like rivers, train tracks, roads, offshoot roads. Know your light pollution map that you're trying to target something interesting, and then go through Google Earth and find these water features, roads and train tracks and elements that you can navigate down and see what people have already taken pictures of. So this is how I use Google Earth. I look at it, I check the terrain, I make sure specifically that the pinnacle I'm looking at is the direction I want it to be. But if I'm not sure where the Milky Way is going to show up or the core is going to show up, PhotoPills. So you got to jump into your PhotoPills app and go to that spot you found on Google Earth, and then really plan, if I stand here, right through the pinnacles, the 2 pinnacles coming up, I can see the Milky Way. And that's how you figure it out. So any questions on that, guys? We have a lot of composition discussion. Nightmare. Yeah, Shane understands. Having the stupid people coming out and turning the light on, that floodlight on over and over, was so annoying. We actually haven't gone back to Strawberry Pinnacles since because of the frustration, but there's so much there that we still haven't scratched the surface of, and so it's given us this bucket list item to go and just explore. When we have nowhere else to go and we know the weather's good out there, we're going to go explore it. Key thing, show up in the day. Show up in the day and find a safe location in the middle of all those trees where maybe the opening happens, where there's a clearing and you could see the pinnacles like we didn't think we could. In the dark, you just can't find those areas very easily, and it's not very safe for us to try and navigate through all the forested area to try and find that clearing. And so in the daytime, we're going to try scouting the area a lot better, and we'll film it for our Photog Adventures. We'll take you guys along. So any questions that came up about the scouting? There's not a ton of tips except one more, and last night I was at Mirror Lake until 4 a.m. and so I got a few hours of sleep and then got out here. Screen out, go away, bear. Scream out. I thought maybe something on my screen was happening. Actually, there is something happening. My window went away, so you guys can't even see me. So let's just go ahead and kill that and start it again. Google Earth will collapse it. What I wanted to show you is over here on the left, you can see that there's images you can add. I have an element that I have added that, unfortunately, because I was out at Mirror Lake, I couldn't double check that it was still here. But it's a light pollution map. It's a light pollution map that someone's created that has a Google KMZ. I mean, it's practically instant to find. I just hate wasting our time. But if you just search Google Earth light pollution map, you're going to find some link that's going to say, hey, yeah, come here, download this, load it into your Google Earth, and then that image overlays your Google Earth, and then you can actually navigate Google Earth seeing where the light pollution is for a certain area or the entire Earth. Just depends on what image you find. And I'm bummed that my image is for some reason gone. Everything about this is not showing it. That image 5829 is not it. And so I don't know where it went. I lost it. So I can't show it today, but I will give you guys a link somehow. If you will come back to the video here in a day, I will have by then given you the actual download link for the map I'm talking about so that you can install it in Google Earth. It's not very difficult, but you will have to stretch the overlay to match the spot in some situations. In mine, I've experienced it where I've loaded it in here and it's instant. And I guess I'm looking at a camera that you guys can't even see. Let me add that camera back in right now so that you can see me. For some reason, it crashes it when it's in the middle of doing the Google Earth stuff. So camera back up, that's an option. Here we go. And so any questions while I'm getting this up? Any questions about what's happening on this and why I use certain elements here and certain elements not here, yada, yada, yada. Any other questions? I'm fixing this live. I was hoping to not have to do this again in the live window, but hey, sometimes things just crash. So you guys can see me again. I'm going to get rid of Google Earth, and we're going to go into the composition discussion if you haven't had any questions that have come up. Let's make myself tiny again, too, because I just don't want to be in the way of these pictures. All right, I have that up. Let me see your tools, options, 3D view, halfway down. Okay, is there a good place to go near Draper? Okay, hey, Donna. The Draper area is crazy polluted, but you have a nice quick access point to go out to the desert in Draper. So I know Draper, Utah. It's up here in the giant bloom that is the light pollution in Utah Valley and Salt Lake Valley. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to go up, Donna. You want to go up into the hills of the Butterfield Canyon area or go over to the other side and go up Immigration Canyon, go up Cottonwood Canyon. It's either one. They go up to a certain point, and even though it's orange and yellow light pollution up here, you're going to experience actually some awesome stuff out at Solitude and Brighton. You're going to see the Milky Way very well, and that's probably for you 20-minute drive, maybe less. Depends on traffic. So that's an area I'd recommend go to Silver Lake. And Andrew, I can't tell if you're answering Susan's question. Awesome. Thanks, Andrew. I wasn't sure if you were asking me a question or answering one, and now I can see the one that you were answering. Thanks for helping Susan. So let's go into compositions. I've started out with this time lapse so we can talk about composition of when you keep an image that's just right. And I have a ton of examples. We have a half an hour to go through them, even more, 35 minutes. But like I said, interrupt me as I go through because I get very excited about this stuff, very passionate, and I just start flowing. So let's start out with my fail. We started out my fail in Google Earth, so let's start out with one of my fails in this image. So I'm going to start showing you this one. This is an area in Kolob Canyon. Now, why did it fail? The composition isn't terrible. You can see that I have a silhouette of trees and a silhouette of bushes, and then the Milky Way is over on the left. And so I've given the Milky Way enough space to breathe. It's a little overlapped by the tree, but it's not terrible. And then I wanted to light paint, and I light painted the terrain. I light painted the bushes. I light painted the rocks. I light painted everything. Well, I say I. It was Brendan. I asked him to light paint for me while I hit the shutter. And then when we were done light painting all these areas, I combined them with the final image. And that looks amazing, right? It might not come through right now through this image, through the stream, that you guys can't tell what's going on, but it's terrible because when you have this terrain that's all going uphill, and then I light paint every bit of it, and now I have a foreground element that's all light painted, and I have a very distant background element. It's a negative thing. Let me see. Maybe I can use my iPad as a whiteboard. That's one benefit of having an iPad Pro with the pencil. I love this thing. So let's just go ahead, and you guys aren't going to be able to see very well unless I jump into the camera, so it's probably a terrible idea to use, but just the elements of an image, you want a strong foreground for your Milky Way, so your Milky Way is not isolated and alone, and you want a midground element. Sometimes you can get away without a midground element that's visible or it's just a shadow, but sometimes when that midground element is missing, it ruins your composition, like in this. I don't know if you guys have noticed. Clicky. He's talking about my light pollution, my light painting. I did happen to use a clicky, one of those clicky flashlights, DR25 clicky or something. I can't remember. But when you said clicky, was something sounding clicky or was it just something going wrong? I'm not sure what you're saying, Shane. This image didn't work out because when I light painted everything in the foreground, I had no anchoring midground elements. What it looks like now in the final composition, and you probably are seeing it too, is that it looks like I photoshopped these trees. If I hadn't shown you guys all the context of here's where the Milky was in my raw image, here's where the tree was light painted, the bushes, and got a little bit of context for the scenery, you don't think of it as a composition or a composite fake looking image as much as I do. But when I see it and maybe someone else sees this without knowing the scenery, it looks like, and you can see how I haven't finished even working on my layer masking this out because it was looking so terrible, I just stopped working on it. It was just too weird looking, like I cut out this tree and overlapped it with another image of a Milky Way and it looks fake. And the problem is I'm lacking that midground element to anchor everything. I'm lacking the situation to try and help everyone see from here is a foreground that I light painted. There's a dark midground in the distance, and this whole terrain exists, and then the Milky Way is up there. It was just a unique situation where I built the composition on an upward hill, and there's just nothing between the Milky Way and these few elements, and it ends up looking fake. So this is an example of a very unique case where light painting caused it to look fake. As you can see in the other images, they actually don't look too fake. Oh, it's actually not recognized in the other images right now. It doesn't look too fake when you see some of the shadow. You can see, okay, the terrain, you got some context, but that wasn't a good final image. So that image just never worked out. It wasn't a portfolio piece. So, no questions. Yep, you're spot on. Eagle Tack Clicky. That's what it is, Eagle Tack. I have stopped using my Eagle Tack Clicky. I am all about low-level lighting. In fact, this scene right here in the time-lapse that's playing is a light painting with 2 lights that are constant, and they are very, very low. When you're standing out there, we could tell that this area was getting lit, but it wasn't causing any problem for our eyes. Our eyes were perfectly adjusted for the sky, and we could see this awesome, awesome, awesome setup of the stars and not getting distracted by too bright of a light painting job that now we're all blinded for a moment, but then the picture turned out okay. And we also didn't have to depend on someone going out there every shutter and light painting consistently every time. And so the beauty of the low-level lighting is that you don't mess up the light, you don't mess up the scene for other people who are in your area, and you also don't mess up a time lapse or multiple shots where you have different versions of light painting. So really love the low level lighting. If you guys are curious about it, go to lowlevellighting.org. Royce Baer and Wayne Goodmanson, Wayne Pinkston, he's been talking about this. This has been awesome. So another image, a composition that I want to talk about, and this is a success. And I'll show you the comparison between one that worked and one that didn't. Same morning, I went out to the Milky Way, getting away from light pollution here in Utah County, and I'm out in this area of Goshen where I have a nice water feature, and I wanted to get a reflective Milky Way in here. You can see that I'm trying to capture as much in the water as I could, but because it's marshy and deep, I couldn't get any closer and see the water up there. I had to stay up on the road to see down into the water and have that reflection happen, and even then I still couldn't capture it. So this image, it's all right. I'm in focus. I have a little bit of star trailing. I'm using a lens that has a little bit of coma on the right and left, but just a little. It's just okay. But what's it lacking? I have a Milky Way coming from the right side of my screen, crossing over into the left. That's a comfortable element of composition. I have the bottom third as an interesting terrain. There's mountains, snow-capped mountains. And then 2/3 of my image is this beautiful sky. So what's wrong with this? Well, not necessarily anything exactly technically wrong, but it's just lacking. There's just something lacking about it. And so you drive down the street and you try and find another element that's going to bring out your composition that's going to make it amazing. What could it be? What could be that element that goes vertical? I can wrap this Milky Way around. It's going to break the plane of the foreground. It's going to bring eyes up from the foreground to the midground to the deep background. Just you want to carry someone's eyes through your image. And in this image, you kind of look straight to the Milky Way, and then navigate down to the terrain and kind of go from the right to the left, but then you kind of only go a little bit up. You don't go up back to the Milky Way. What's going to bring you from the bottom of the image to the top of the image? Something that really interests you. Well, I found it. I found it this morning. I had seen it weeks earlier, and I thought, what if I could find that? It's 3 a.m. It's dark. I'm alone. I just barely hit a rabbit. I was feeling bad about that. And how am I going to find this awesome feature? And I did. Oh, come on. All the effect of hitting that button. It was actually the left button. This is the silo. This is the silo that's only 45 minutes from home. It's brilliant. It's so much fun to record, to capture an image around because I can light paint the front. And this light painting, Shane, howdy GD. Hey, Rob. He's nicknamed me GD. If you guys know someone in history that's well known for being lost that has the initials GD, write it in the comments because I haven't figured it out yet. I'm just not remembering that character in history. So Shane, you were right about the clicky, and the clicky is what I used here. So I would hit the 10-second timer, I would blitz down the street, and then I'd go as far as I could away from my camera because, let's see, you can see my hands right here. You want to have your light perpendicular to your light. If you have your camera looking this way and your light's going this way, you get flat. You get flat lighting. So you have to go perpendicular to where your camera's shooting. So I had to run down the road as fast as I could to get out here and light paint the silo. And it turned out pretty even. It turned out pretty nice. And I have the shadow contrast of the two of these, I guess, cylinders that are part of the silo storage right there. It's just awesome. It's just this big concrete animal, and it peers up into the sky majestic and carries you from the bottom of the foreground that you can see is just boring. It is just this thin little bit of bushes that covers the bottom. If it wasn't for the silo, this image would be so blah. And so this thing carries your eyes up and you see this Milky Way. Not only is this a little bit more interesting than having no vertical element in here, but we're at a different location where you can see that the light pollution is just a little bit less and I could get a clearer Milky Way. The core was just glowing that night, just glowing. It's so cool. So here's an element in composition that you want to do. You have this awesome big subject of the Milky Way and it takes up this much of your space. And then your foreground element kind of balances it out in some way, whether it's multiple objects or multiple colors, however you want to balance out your composition. And right here, I balanced it out with a silo. I could have been happy with this image and gone home and got some sleep, but I kept looking and I'm so happy I did because I found one of my favorite locations to go to take people to and they can learn. I think I'm waxing poetic too much on this. It's already 11:36. Let's move along. Any questions about this? This is an element of composition you should look for. Elements that are vertical or even hanging down, just something that's going to carry you from the bottom third to the middle third to the upper third of your image. It kind of carries the eyes. All right. Gosh, I love that. So we're going to go ahead and talk about, we keep seeing this time lapse. Let's come to that in the end, just because that's one of our more recent images. So let's talk about this area. This area happens to be between the water and the silo. This is a train trestle that's been abandoned. And let me show you an image. Yeah, we'll just show you this one first. This is with Brendan and I out there trying our best to stand still, standing on the trestle. This trestle is a bit of a fun challenge because you got a very interesting subject to light paint. In this situation, we are light painting? No, because Trav's hitting the shutter. In this situation, what we have is a composite of us light painting with the clicky, and we composited the light painted frames over the tripod that stayed completely still and then shot the frame for us to stand out there on the train track. So if you're new to photography or new to using composites, keep that tripod totally still. Take a shot of your Milky Way image and have no other light distracting it. And then take your shot where you're doing light painting and you can blend that with a blending layer called lighten, and you put that right on top of the texture of the shadowy wood and it shows up all the light painting job that you've done on the wood here. And then a third image of us standing on top of that. Ah, right, yep. And in this situation, we did Nevada. We took time to actually focus on the infinity point that made the sharpest Milky Way. But then when we were light painting, we actually changed our ISO so that we had less noise. We weren't up there at 6400, 3200 ISO, all that noise. We had focused on 200 to 800 ISO, and then we focused on the trestle. The problem is, let me take that back. In this situation, we didn't focus on the trestle because sometimes you have a focus breathing issue when you change your element from a focus in the distance to a focus that's closer. This might have been to the infinity point of this lens where I could focus or be in focus on the trestle and the infinity point that shows all the stars in focus. I don't remember exactly, but you'll find situations where you have an element 6-8 feet in front of you, and if you were to focus on that and then focus on the Milky Way, your frame would have issues. In fact, I think that's part of the problem I'm having in my collab fail. I'll show that image again. When you look close on these bushes, what's happening? I think it's not a focus breathing issue in this case. I think it's just sheer wind movement. But between my dark frames and my light painted frames, the leaves have moved. And so I have to go and do extra work to actually mask out, clone out, work to get these black fringing areas gone. In that trestle situation, let's say it was close enough that it wasn't to an infinity to focus on it. What you would end up with is a trestle line that's all black vertical. Let's just close this so you can see the trestle again. You can see the black lines and shadows of the trestle wood, and then you would focus for infinity and it would change the position barely with that little focus breathing where it would just move it pixels away from where the light painted pixels are, and you would have an outline of wood that's black in every section of this image. And so I didn't have a focus breathing issue in this image. I don't believe we changed the focus, Nevada. Yeah, Nevada's saying he struggled breathing with taking 2 or more exposures, and it's absolutely true. What you want, your best case scenario, is to have your foreground object at infinity as well as your Milky Way. So if you have the infinity focus for your stars and your actual foreground object is in that same distance from your lens where you're at infinity and you're focused on that as well, you're going to have 0 focus breathing issues like the silo. I light painted the silo and there's nothing wrong with it because it's so far away from my camera, it's at infinity anyway. And so that's the easiest way around it, just to avoid focus breathing altogether, is to keep your focus in one place the whole time. But when you change your focus location, or you focus from up here and you change your focus to down here, you will have focus breathing issues. Robert Ryan, was this before you got the 6D? This Trestle image is with the 6D, which is why I have so much in frame. I wanted to show you that as part of this composition. You can see this is my Canon 70D. It's not bad, but I was struggling so hard. I had a 24mm Rokinon on this camera, but because of the crop factor, it was practically like using a 35-37mm, and so it was rather zoomed in. And so in this terrain, you can kind of see it here. This camera is as far back as you can go. This terrain has barbed wire fencing. You can see over here, over on this part of the image. You can see the barbed wire fencing that we're standing up against, and the terrain was going up. It slopes upward towards that fence. And the big problem with that is that we really wanted to capture some of the Milky Way underneath the trestle. In this image, where we show Brendan and I on top, we didn't worry about that. We just went for, it's really hot in here. Sorry if I keep going, whew. It's very hot in this studio. So I'm sitting there trying to just get a good shot of the trestle in the image because the subject is us and the Milky Way. It's not the trestle. But in this image, I was trying to get the Milky Way under the trestle, and it's so hard to get. And noisy full frame. The city looks better for noise. This right here, it was set at a setting that brought out all of the noise. You can see the grain in the sky. And so I think what happened is when I brought in all the light painting frames together and then to make us visible, so much of this Milky Way shot came out grainy, but I loved the composite of everything together that I was dealing with the noise. What distance in meters roughly would infinity be for both foreground and Milky Way? Shane, it's actually different by lens. Your point of infinity changes with temperature too. If you look at your lens and you see how you focus it all the way over to the right, or depending on the lens, Nikon, I think it's all the way over to the left, you have this infinity point that actually has a range. And the range is there because at X temperature, this lens's infinity point is right about here. But if it's in a different temperature, it doesn't go that far, and it's actually focused here. So within that range, you actually have to find your focus on the stars to know you're at infinity. Whether or not an object that's 10 meters in front of you, 15 yards in front of you, or 10 meters, 10 yards in front of you, and that is in infinity focus, all depends on your lens. My Rokinon 24mm, I'm pretty sure it focuses to infinity by about 3 to 4 meters. It's not very far if I have that correct, because once I'm wide open, the infinity point is not too distant in front of me. But I don't know that number. It's not important that I have that information. Your hyperfocal distance can be calculated using the PhotoPills app, but I don't bother figuring out my hyperfocal distance. And so it's just something where you make sure your stars are in focus and you have it as sharp as possible, and then see your foreground. And if your foreground looks a little fuzzy and it's not quality, just move your tripod back. Because your tripod at focus to infinity, your camera focus to infinity on your stars, no matter where you move it, it's going to be focused on the stars because you haven't made yourself any closer or further from those stars. So you're fine. So now if you wanted, you could just move your tripod around and make sure your foreground is included in the infinity focus. Mess around with that. And Rob Ryan says, oh, he just wrote it to you guys. So he's definitely right about the noise, but it's not important. It's about composition. So here's the composition of a trestle that I'm just so tight, and I don't love it. It's just, What's lacking? It has an interesting diagonal. It's not just a flat line. One thing about composition is that you don't want everything parallel lines from the top or bottom frame, or even the right and left side of the frame. You want to make sure that you have some interesting changes, some character in your image. And so it's cool that I had the diagonal here on the trestle, but it's just not all there because you couldn't see more of the Milky Way and really glorify the awesomeness that is the Milky Way. And also my settings, this is before I figured out how to get a proper exposure on the Milky Way. So I think I underexposed the Milky Way in this image, and when a car drove by and lit up that trestle for me and did a little light painting for me, it looks okay, but the Milky Way is underexposed. So let's look at a couple trestle options. So what is going on here? We're on top of the trestle and we're trying to get a composition that's cool. And a cool composition would be to have that Milky Way at the very end of this train track that's going out into infinity. Why? Just because of the composition rule that we'll talk about of your eyes, where the eyes are moving in and you're guiding your eyes, and these are called guiding lines. You have guiding lines in your image. We've seen a lot of Rob Ryan's images that has a lot of roads that guide you to the Milky Way. One saving grace of this image, this is just a raw, it's not processed whatsoever. One saving grace of this image is at the very end of the image, it takes a jog to the left. And that left jog kind of turns you looking to the left, and that's where the Milky Way was. I came back in September to try and get this shot because I heard that you can line up the track with the Milky Way in September. You can see the core is even below the horizon, and it's tilted. It's tilted just a little bit. I tried as late as I possibly could in the season in October again and still couldn't get better. This might even be my October image. And so this is just so difficult to get because I knew my composition I wanted. I had the train tracks in the bottom third. What would make this stronger? A little bit higher. If I go up higher and I can see more of those leading lines and even some more of the gaps between the train track, the horizontal lines, that would give some texture and some ladder feeling, this ladder that's leading you towards the pathway. And as it gets further, it would kind of blend together. You would see the gaps more in the beginning, and then it would blend together. And so that would make this image much stronger if I could see the horizontal gaps at the bottom, and if those lines led directly to the Milky Way. It just doesn't work. It's unfortunate. This area probably will not work unless you stand right about, here on the train tracks. But what you can't tell is right here and right here, the iron beams, the steel beams or the steel rails of the train track, they go away. They have picked up and scavenged, or someone has recovered all of this steel, and so it just really has steel right here, and that's it. If it kept going on the track and it kept having steel lines that curved, we could stand over here and look right at the Milky Way, and that would have been brilliant. So you looked at this image. This is a composition where we had the Milky Way above the trestle entirely, but what if I want to try a different composition? Actually, this is the same composition. It's just not me standing on it. A little bit further back. That's right. I included this image to show you how far back I could go. This was our final image from a shot what we did in a photog adventure out here at the trestle, the train trestle. So if you check out the video, you'll see what we're talking about and how we did this shot. I would say this composition's okay. I still don't feel like I've really nailed it for an awesome, interesting train trestle Milky Way shot, but it's only July, so I have a lot of time to go back out there and get it. Any questions, hit me up. I'm going to jump to the next folder of images. Right now it is 11:49 and I only have two folder images to go. Let's go through quickly a bunch of elements of a bunch of successful images. So this doesn't include any fails, not really. The Moonrise Bridge is kinda. So this is a composition out there at Goblin Valley. What makes this strong is that you have elements here that are breaking through the plane. It's not just all parallel with this distant foreground. You can see over here in this corner, there's this distant foreground that if only that was my foreground, it wouldn't work. Hey. My camera turned off again. Let's just go ahead and kill it for the rest of the video. So over here, this distant foreground, if that was all I had, it wouldn't have been very interesting. So these break that plane of the distant foreground. So overlapping elements with your foreground, midground, and background elements, that's a good composition. That has some balance. Now, these right here, you can see that they are not overlapping and touching. Why? Here's another thing you need to look out for in your compositions. It's called, oh, now it's flitted out of my head. Let me bring back that window. It is called a tangent. You can cause tangents with your subject, and you want to avoid these tangents where there's intersecting lines where you don't mean to intersect certain things. It's just not nearly as cool with these tangents, and they can cause really distracting elements to be ugly instead of just interesting. So you try and avoid tangents. And so when you're focusing on getting your shot composed and make it awesome, pay attention to how your foreground elements interact with each other. If you have a situation where everything is coming and intersecting and causing this weird issue, avoid it. Move to the right or left. So this right here, this view that I'm getting between these two rocks, you can overlap rocks like these ones. These are completely overlapping. But what if I had taken this section right here and then had this edge of this rock touching the edge of this rock? It causes an unwanted relationship between the two, because then they start looking like it's all one big shape. You might know what I'm talking about if you think about someone hugging someone else. You've seen that optical illusion where their hair is over the person's head and when they're hugging, and it looks like that person has that hair. It's an unwanted relationship with the person standing in the background of someone where the person's flexing their knee up like Captain Morgan, and that person is standing in the perfect position to actually look like they're standing on the person's knee. That's an unwanted relationship or a tangent that occurs. And so you want to give breathing room. If you're going to bring these elements where they're going to overlap, don't just barely overlap them. Make sure you overlap them more. Give them that breathing room so the tangent isn't something that's distracting. So I paid attention to the tangents in my scene of all these interesting hoodoos that were coming up, all these goblins at Goblin Valley. And I also paid attention that I had a nice element closest to me that stretches all the way into the top third of my image. And then that balance of these balanced well with the Milky Way up here. And you can see my processing is artistic, where I've taken the Milky Way and made it more copper too, to match the kind of copper color of the terrain. And so that is a cool way for you to maintain a clean, balanced composition. And if you have a buddy who has that clicky, that Eagle Tack clicky for you, who's willing to light paint every single one of these for you, take advantage of them because they're a good friend. So this composition turned out well for those reasons. This is a composition that wasn't perfect, and it's frustrating to me. I needed a wider angle. Why? Here's this river that came across, and what is the most interesting foreground element? It's the brightest part of the river, and if I had more of it showing up on this side, it would have been a stronger composition. This whole shape of the gooseneck right here, here, and here is sort of the most interesting part of the foreground, and it gets cut off at the bottom here. It gets cut off on the right. I needed to pull back. I needed to be down a little bit more, see more of that, pull back, and then I needed to give more space for the Milky Way. I mean, look at how it starts and ends almost immediately in this image, and I have all this dead space over here. So this composition is quality, but not there. How can I perfect it? That's one way. And my camera's actually frozen. Are you guys able to see me at all? I guess I freaked out this system by minimizing it. Sorry about that. I didn't realize that I had made it so it froze, so you weren't even seeing me move my arms, which I'm sure really makes this video. So this composition is just lacking in that, but it's pretty awesome still. I love this image. It's just got a terrible coma in the corners that makes it so that I gotta recreate this image. Composition, vertical Milky Ways. I wanted to show this as an example of vertical Milky Way so that you guys knew what the challenges are. I mean, this is such a symmetrical image. I got things on the right and left framing my vertical Milky Way. Yes, we can see you. Cool. Thanks, Donna. And then I went up really high, And this is a fun image, but it's just so long. It's impossible to share on Instagram. It's impossible to share in most situations. It will look fantastic when I print it, but it's just not all the way there. What could have made this a stronger image is if my foreground bush, this little teeny green plant, if only that could have taken up more space in my image in the foreground. It's almost cute that it's weak and piddly right there versus the cracks, the amazing cracks in this ground and the awesome Milky Way, vertical Milky Way. So it's kind of like an interesting juxtaposition of the majesty of the rest of the scene, and it's just a little cute little bush. But I wanted something bigger. I wanted something far more full that could take up this foreground. And then if I didn't have this weird ravine gap right here, I could just go straight from my foreground line to a Milky Way. That would have been brilliant. But here's a composition where I use symmetry for balance. Just a lot of right and left balance to make it seem comfortable and a good composition. This right here is not a processed image, but it's an example of a panorama working out balance where you have a good third. You have the rule of thirds here. You can focus on that. Plus, you've got a nice balance of how much space on each, the right and left of your Milky Way arch. It's neat. It's got a bright element in the center that kind of brings your eye there, but then there's also this beautiful core. These Knowles elements, they are piddly. They are small. I wanted them to be bigger, and so I have to redo this composition where I can try and get these large and underneath the Milky Way arch. That would be a fantastic composition. I'm rushing through these because I don't want to kill you guys on time. We only have 4 more minutes, so I'm just finishing up these highlights. Here's an image. What doesn't work here? What is not working out? Mostly this is just a panorama to show how there is this weird red color going on over here. Turned out it was an aurora. I had no idea. I'm in southern Utah. I never expected to see aurora, and so I captured that. Here's Brendan standing by his camera. I captured that just to show it later, and it turned out it was the best image I had that night because it actually showed the aurora. If only I had known. What makes this image tough is not the clouds blocking the core. What makes it tough is that I have an element right here that is parallel with the Milky Way, but not in a comfortable way. What is this? There's a tangent. There's this unwanted relationship between the Milky Way and this, and it's not balanced out right. You can overlap the Milky Way with something, and I'm going to show you that next. But in this case, it doesn't balance well. The element is so small, and it's also the exact same size as the Milky Way. I can't see anything above it. It's just not breathing right here. It doesn't work out. It's an interesting image, but the composition's off. This will not be a portfolio shot because of that. Here's an image real quickly. It's just a typical rule of thirds, but I've also got a vertical element that is making the pull from the midground and foreground up into the background. These mountains are interesting, but having an element overlap, that's fantastic. If this part of this temple had been, say, touching just this peak right there, that would have been a tangent. It would have been weird. It needs to have enough breathing room overlapping that element to make it strong. And then the Milky Way, even though it's a very heavy light polluted area, it actually turned out okay. It's not bad, but this is just an example of like a balance. Slightly off topic, I noticed when taking a panorama of the Milky Way, the sky changed brightness in one of the frames, even though the settings remain the same. Any thoughts on what went wrong? Do you have auto color balance changing? If you have it in RAW, you can always change and sync up the color balance. But I've noticed in this panorama that I shared, I had issues stitching the sand because I had more noise occurring in the sand than anywhere else. And the noise is random. And since that randomness stitched together and didn't blend together because the noise is random, you can see it different. That temple was the Payson temple. If you know the Utah temples, that's Payson. So if you want to go down there, you can actually capture the Milky Way in Payson. It's awesome. So I'm guessing that you had a setting change. You say that you kept the settings the same, and yet it still happened to be bright. Maybe there was an element of light pollution that bloomed, or something else happened with where noise was occurring. It's tough to say without seeing the image, but Nevada, we can get in contact. I'd love to see the image and then make my best guess after that, because I mean, who knows if I can be right. So that's the last of the compositions that were in the quick folder. Now let's go back to this guy. Let's end it on Natural Bridges National Monument and talk about how do you get a proper composition here and what's the best option. Well, here's a time lapse I've taken, and here's the Milky Way navigating through. Here's an example of actually having a composition where you're intersecting the Milky Way with an element. And is it okay? Is it strong? Is it good? It feels okay. You got a nice rule of third going. You got nice space for the Milky Way to breathe. You see a lot of the Milky Way. The foreground's completely dark except for that bridge. So is there any point to keeping this foreground? It's just so dark. I don't know. I like seeing more of the Milky Way. So let me try different times of my time lapse. The Milky Way core is now, it isn't being hidden by this as much, but it also seems like so much of it's visible. You get this feeling of, I want to see the rest. It's just barely being cut off by that. So the Owachomo Bridge is blocking it just a little too little. So let's go higher. Okay. This now is having a line that's leaning to my corner, not exactly in the corners, no tangent. You can see the Rho Ophiuchi complex. This is, by the way, not a processed image. It's just slightly processed, so the time lapse could work. And it's okay. But what could make this stronger? What could make the composition portfolio worthy? And the answer you guys have already seen if you've already seen my other webinar. This right here is strong but weak. It's just got elements in there that are unnecessary. Is this tree part of my image that I love? Hey, look, it's breaking the plane. It's not really featured in breaking the plane. How can we break the plane and be interesting from the bottom of my image to the top of my image to the right of my image to the left? By going and doing this. What changed? What changed in my composition? What did I do differently? Let's look back and forth. Wrong one. I just got closer. I just got right underneath it. Literally, we're standing right underneath the Owachomo Bridge. The element that I've light painted in this scene, that I've made the most important element of the composition because I've light painted. I said, hey, this is my favorite part because I took the time to light paint it. That is now featured in from frame to frame. It's in the whole thing instead of being light painting over here and nothing over there. Why would I keep anything over there? No one can see the whole Milky Way at all the time. This isn't an arching panorama, so why have this when you can have that? I'm only seeing some of the Milky Way core. I'm only seeing some of the spiral going off of the Milky Way core, but it's strong because this really rockin' looking bridge, this natural land bridge, is just so neat. The texture, the color, what's happening with the light, how you're getting shadows and highlight points. There's nothing in here except for the distant background that makes this look like it's not in here that's light painted. I got distracted because I realized I wanted to point out my image in the beginning, the collab image that looks like I composited something on top of a Milky Way image and it looks fake. It's not a problem in this image because I have the context of a shadowy, contrasting background. And so you get an idea that this is in the distance, this is in the foreground, and here's the sky. But that collab image looked like everything that was land was a faked, photoshopped in element of land over a Milky Way image. And in this image, it doesn't do that. And I stop and end with this image because it's one of my most recent proud images. The balance and composition's fantastic. I'm happy with it. Can it be different? Yeah, check out Jeff Peterson's image of this. He has the same scene, but a different timing. He's done a different stacking method on it. It looks different. You can get a really cool image standing right next to your buddies taking the same scene. You can work on it. Any questions before I hang up the live feed? It is now 12:04, so we've gone 4 minutes over. I'm here for you if you guys have any questions who are hanging out. How many frames do you typically use to get a full arch panorama of the Milky Way? Okay, Nevada, I had an issue recently where I didn't get enough frames. So let me answer that question with get as many frames as you need to put what you want in your composition in the center of your glass, which means when I'm doing a panorama, typically I'll do let me even go bigger, even though I'd rather have you guys see the picture of my Milky Way than see my face. Let me go bigger. I'll do this. So right here, even though panorama. I do a vertical orientation typically, just because then I have long edges to seam together. The seaming portion of your image, you want it to be the long edge of your frame. So I do a long vertical typically, and then I capture my shots. Well, say I'm really, really, really fond with the idea of capturing the arch of the Milky Way fully. Top of it, all the way from the core, all the way down over here. I'm going to make sure that that middle part of my glass, that non-stretch, because in the vertical I got stretch here, stretch here, stretch here, stretch here, and stretch on all the walls. So that center point of each image is what I want into my panorama. And so I'm going to have to take 16 across sometimes, or just 6 across, depending on how my focal length is. And so I make sure that if I wanted this far edge of the Milky Way, I'm going to want to make sure I go way over here and get all those non-distorted center part of the frames here pulled into the center. I say I didn't take enough frames. I was at Crater Lake. I was taking a shot that I didn't go high enough in the sky. I went up until I could see it, but I didn't overlap it so much that I brought that part of the Milky Way to the center part of my frame. I have 3 or 4 images where it is at the center part of my frame, but because it's stitching everything together and I didn't do enough of it over here, Lightroom started to bend things together and fold them like a bow on top of a hat. It was terrible. I have to go into PT GUI or Photoshop and manually do my stitch now because it didn't connect. So take as many as you can. That image that you saw that was not processed, that full arch panorama, that was 37 images. And yes, Lightroom sucks for that. And so when you click process, you choose your projection, you're like, yeah, this looks good. Go. And then it starts creating the panorama. It looked like it froze. And thanks to watching patiently, I saw that thing jumped out. Thanks, Susan. You're welcome. Thanks, Shane. I'm glad that you came and joined me today. Next week, we're going to talk about settings, right? I think it's settings that we're going to talk about specifically for our composition. Come back to the channel and check it out, and you can see what it was. I can find it here in a moment. So go to my notes. I love the iPad Pro. Yeah, it is settings. Gear is the next one. So next Saturday, 11 a.m., join me for settings. And to finish your discussion, Nevada, I lost my train of thought. The panorama image 37. Oh, yeah. Lightroom wasn't frozen. It actually was still running. And I let it go all night long and woke up the next morning and found that stitch worked. 37 images, awesome. Jeff Peterson is a friend of mine. He just did 45, let it sit there. I haven't found out if it turned out, but I know that he did the same thing where it froze it. So go for the gold. Get as many as you can to get that whole frame in your best part of the glass. It just depends on your lens. You're welcome, Donna. Thanks, Redhead. You're welcome. And you're welcome, Nevada. Any other questions? I think I should probably end it there. If you need any other questions, you can always go to one of our YouTube videos, comment it. It doesn't matter if the question has anything to do with the YouTube video. I'm available there. Another slightly off topic. Early tests of the 6D Mark II show the dynamic range is no better than the original 6D and even worse than the 80D. Now, the dynamic range between the 80D and the 60 for night photography, I would argue the 60 is better. But I'm really curious how bad the 6D Mark II is for night photography. I saw those reports and I'm very disappointed. I was never planning on buying a 6D Mark II anyway. My 6D right here is fantastic. If I buy a second body, I'm going 5D Mark IV, something with more focus points, something with better focus, faster focus, good for all-around photography. I'm not going to mess around with the 6D Mark II, but I'm curious. I'm going to test it out. Hey, Entangled, thanks for watching. You're welcome. Thanks for calling it knowledge and not rambling. I appreciate that. So it is 12:10 almost. Let's go 2 more minutes. You have any questions? You have 2 more minutes. We'll close out at 12:10, and I will just leave you with this screen showing awesomeness Milky Way time lapse. If you guys ever get a chance to go to Natural Bridges National Monument, it's fantastic. Why? Because you see this light pollution bloom, and then you see this area down here, and then you go to the middle of it. Oh, wow. Natural Bridges National Monument in a dark sky site. One of the first, or maybe the first, international dark sky site. It's actually been designated International Dark Sky Site, Dark Sky Park, that is taking care of low light pollution and making sure it's awesome always. I'm going A7R3. Nevada, I think I am too. I don't know what their settings are, the rumors, who cares? I just can't wait to hear what they actually are. I'm very tempted to get an A7R3 and get a Metabones adapter, keep my Canon glass so that I can use it on this Canon 6D and use my A7R3. I'm excited about the possibility. Weathering issues, not completely as quality as Canon, but the battery issues you can solve on the Sony with just a little power bank, and that's fantastic for a guy who loves doing time lapses. Oh, come to Australia, dark skies forever. Amen. Can't wait. Joshua Tree got that designation just barely. I didn't see that yet. I love the International Dark Sky site, and so I love checking their website and seeing who they've designated next. I'm glad Joshua Tree got it. I have to get out there with my camera. I haven't yet. Oh, yeah, you see us blitzing around. There's actually 4. In this shot, you can see in the center next to it, there's 4 at one point, but I think there's a 5th person because one guy had his wife there. But yeah, 4 photographers, and we're just walking around casually, and over an hour of that, it looks like we're running around nuts. And there's a message to you, Nevada Xtube, and it's probably it's 12:10. Thank you for joining me, guys. Again, go to our podcast. Check out the Photog Adventures podcast. We talk about astrophotography with Ian Norman from Lonely Speck. We talk about it with Royce Bear, an awesome man that we love. And we talk with a lot of people worldwide and hear their stories about how they enjoyed going out with their camera. And you can check out our YouTube channel. You're on it right now. Come back and check out the one that I'm going to finish. Probably now it's going to finish it late tonight. So check it out Sunday morning. You can see our trip to Escalante. Nighttime photography too, so it'll be fun. I was there the other night. Awesome. Donna, I'm jealous of you. Okay, guys, thanks for joining me today. Thanks for checking this out, and I'll hopefully see all of you next Saturday at 11 a.m. And ask any questions you want to any comment on any YouTube video you want. I'll find it, and I'll respond. See you guys. And turn